Islam is Islamophobic. According to Islamists as well. That's the best part of this story, which is the Islamists say that Islam is Islamophobic.
How does that even work?
I know, right? So to help make this make sense, we're going to turn to a outlook called the Tab, Bristol Tab here.
Yeah, I've
talk about that in a minute.
heard about that one, yeah.
So here's the article. Bristol law lecturer under fire from Bristol Islamic Society over Islamophobic remarks. What did he say? They claim Professor Stephen Greer used Charlie Hebdo massacre as evidence of Islam's stance on freedom of speech. Yes.
How can they deny?
Dum-dums.
Yeah.
Like, they blasphemed against the Prophet, so they killed the people in Charlie Hebdo. And that's an example of Islam not being very tolerant of criticism of the Prophet. It doesn't even just stop there. I mean, you could go for Samuel Paty, Kurt Vestergaard, or what was it, Theathango, the guy who got stabbed to death in Denmark. I mean, Denmark's learnt this fair and square.
Even if we're not talking about criminal things, like whenever there's a discussion about blasphemy laws and things like that in the UK, they're always trotting out some imam who's just like, yes, Islam is very clear about this.
Death to those who disbelieve. Well, death to those who blaspheme, not disbelieve. Although, if you leave the religion, also death. Very tolerant religion. But if we want to know about the Tab, the reason I'm mentioning that I have a burning passion for hatred against the Tab, if we go to the next link here, so this is an article on lotuses.com about racism throughout our institutions. If you scroll down, so I want to get to a bit that says ad for inclusivity internship at the Tab. So it's right down, keep going, until you see the Tab's logo. So the Tab put up an internship. Keep going. There's a thing for the Tab. So then they have an internship in which they say BAME only background can apply. So you have to be BAME to apply for the internship.
Which,
see it there?
Isn't that against our so-called equality law?
Yeah, it's illegal, but on paper. In de facto
reality,
reality
it doesn't get
land,
enforced.
Government doesn't care, do they? Police are literally woke. So why don't they do anything?
Almost all of the time, if you contact them and just remind them that it's illegal, they will immediately change it. We had this with, I saw a job advertisement where they're like, we're only hiring women.
Well,
and we just messaged them just like, yeah, that is illegal, by the way. And magically, overnight, the job opening is open to all.
I think Ramveer was bullying GCHQ over that. I assume that's what we're referencing. But anyway, if we scroll down a little bit, just so you can see this properly, so you can see applications for the Tab. Inclusivity internship, which is available this year to students and writers only from BAME backgrounds. You have to be BAME. You have to be a BAME. I love how that also just
Our word is also banned as well.
Yeah, I love this commenter underneath I featured as well, which is great. He responds with, please could you let me know what percentage of my DNA needs to be of non-European origin to qualify for this role, or is it based on skin color alone? Don't know. Ask the Tab, I guess. But anyway, let's go back to this racist institution. The Tab, literally racist. They said you have to be a certain skin tone to work for them, and if you're not that skin tone, get out of here, boy. Like, that's their stance, not mine. So they're upset about this totally Islamophobic man. So what's going on here? So they say that BRISOC, so that's Bristol Islamic Society, very much sounds like INGSOC.
I was just thinking that, actually.
So BRISOC is taking action over a number of complaints made against Professor Stephen Greer of the law school due to his reported use of discriminatory remarks and Islamophobic comments. I love how they're taking action. They're the ones complaining. What are you? Anyway, so law students reported that Professor Greer frequently expresses views in his classes that can be deemed Islamophobic, bigoted, and divisive. Oh no, not division. Oh, it's almost like that's what all politics is. Division. Point. The whole thing. BRISOC says Professor Greer provided justification for the Chinese government policy of targeting of Uyghur Muslims by stating that, quote, if a particular piece of legislation impacts disproportionately against a group, it looks superficially like discrimination. Okay, that's the part of the quote. And then they do that thing where you do like open brackets, ... close brackets. And we're going to take them very seriously. There's no way they quote-minded this next bit. This is the case in China with Muslims in re-education camps. No way he said that. Give me the full quote. Liars. I mean, just blatant-faced liars. No one believes that for a minute, that that's an accurate quote. So BRISOC demands that Professor Stephen Greer apologizes to all Muslim students, all of them, just even the ones that weren't even there, making it clear that his remarks are an opinion rather than objective truth. Oh, then it'll be okay then. if he actually honestly believed that the re-education camps in China are good, and that was just his opinion, that'd be fine. Muslims have no problem with that whatsoever at Bristol's Islamic Society. Okay, not true.
I would doubt that, yeah.
Yeah. They also demand that, quote, material is removed from his teaching and the module. That's very Islamic. Shutting down teaching that you don't like. What was that about Charlie Hebdo again? You were saying they're not happy when people insult Islam? They get killed. Also, they want a firm complaint is being made from. A firm commitment is made from him not to make such a statements in future teaching. So comply with the Sharia. They're literally threatening him. It's like, look, you will delete what you've said, you will apologize, and then you will make a commitment to obey anything we say at the Islamic Society of Bristol. Again, Islamic Society of Bristol.
The fact that exists at all is bad enough.
Man. Like, the memes are true. They continue because, of course, that never ends. There's always the thing with extremists. If you say, what can I do to make you happy, they'll give you a list of demands. If you agree to them, what's followed? Another list of the demands.
You can only teach Sharia law in your law school.
So they continue. If these demands are not met, Bree Sock asked the university to consider future disciplinary action, including suspension and or dismissal of the teacher for showing that Charlie Hebdo showed that Islam's not very tolerant. What a bad man.
So terrible. I mean...
But again, the whole thing about like, oh, you're upset that Charlie Hebdo shows that we're not intolerant. Also, if you ever say that, we're going to kick you out of the university because we're the group of tolerance right here. When asked in a video posted at the University of Bristol Law School if the Prevent Duty, a Counter-Terrorism and Security Act passed in 2015, is, quote, racist, Islamophobic and discriminatory. Yeah, it's always the buzzwords of the day, isn't it?
It's always in the same order as well. Have you noticed?
Yeah, it's always racist first. Mm-hmm. Greer responded, the prevent strategy includes all forms of terrorism, but the fact that most of those that had come to its attention are Muslims is simply a reflection that jihadi terrorism is the principal terrorist threat the UK currently faces.
That's exactly what our terror experts say.
Demonstrably bloody true. I mean, just look at the terrorist attacks that are successful or unsuccessful. Overwhelmingly, they're jihadi. They are not of the far right or the far left in the UK, although there are those elements, of course. Breesock say that in their statement that these examples expose a clear lack of depth of knowledge about Islam. Do they? Or are you just obviously lying? And show an institutional failing to understand how this rhetoric will cause harm. Pathetic. But you can see this being a openly racist outlet. Of course, they want to give coverage to the Bristol Islamic Society because they want to help them out because fellow brothers in the race war, I guess. So if we carry on, there's also Al Jazeera who tried to give cover to this group and big them up and give them more coverage of being the good guys. And so in here, they reference, in a section discussing Islam and human rights, Greer listed freedom of expression as a key challenge to Islam, which highlighted that to insult in Islam is punishable by death. So there should be a slide here, yeah, this one, the 4.1. So this is the disgusting slide. Disgusting, needs to be fired for this. What did he put? 4.1 key human rights challenges for the Muslim world. Number 1, freedom of expression, insult to Islam punishable by death, E.G. Charlie Hebdo. What's wrong with that?
Perfectly fine to me.
Also just look up Saudi penal code. Also, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, apostasy punishable by death in Islam. Yep. And also, again, multiple Muslim countries backing him up on that, standing by and being like, based bro. And he's like, no, get your hand off me. Like, not with you people, criticizing you. Position of non-Muslims and other minorities in Islamic states. Only Muslims are full citizens. Yep, you can see this throughout history and in the Muslim world. Some rights are limited to citizens. That's definitely true.
Yes.
Are you really going to disavow that? Position of women. Polygamy, divorce, custody of children on divorce, inequality of legal testimony, physical chastisement by husbands, dress, women who wear hijab less likely to work outside of the home or be involved in higher education. Of course, not just limited to the hijab, also the niqab or the burqa, because it gets worse and worse, because it always does. And then had punishments, unlawful intercourse, false accusations of unlawful intercourse, highway robbery, drinking alcohol. And yes, so this is very, very accurate description of the problems with the Muslim world to a liberal in the West. And Bristol Islamic Society are like, we resent that remark. So
they're just proving him right in every point, isn't it?
This is so like nothing burger, right? And the reason I'm going over this is because it gets worse and worse. Like you think there's some pissed off like students, right? But of course, it never ends there, does it? So if we carry on, we go to their dumb petition in which they're like, get rid of the bad man. He said that Islam is Islamic, which is Islamophobic. Where I get the title from. So they say in here, the University of Bristol is an educational institution that is committed to decolonizing the curriculum and ensuring that the criteria is inclusive in scope and delivery. We hope that they will act on and speak up for the culture they want to push forward. Islamic culture, as in censoring anyone who disagrees with Islam. That's what they're demanding. They're like, the university signed up for this. You signed up to decolonize the curriculum. This is what this means. It does. Thanks for the admission.
Isn't it just a different kind of colonization?
How can it not be? Has Bristol not always been Islamic?
Well,
Back to the 13th century. I'm sure it was. Who would want to disagree with that? Ingsoc. I mean, literal Ingsoc over here is upset. Anyway, so let's move on from their dumb position, because the thing here is it didn't end there. Of course it didn't. So it carried on. And now he's lost his position. Not because he's done anything wrong. Literally, the university said he didn't do anything wrong, but they still cancelled his course.
Right, so he's just like, yeah, you didn't do anything wrong, but also, yeah, you can't teach that anymore.
Yes.
You haven't done anything wrong, we're going to punish you anyway.
Yes. So here's the headline. University clears Don of being anti-Islam, but then cancels his course anyway, because screw him. So he's done nothing wrong, but it's cancelled. Why is it cancelled? Because it's got nothing wrong with it. Right.
If it was a self-respecting institution, it should have kicked out the students who were complaining in the first place. If the university's actually meant to teach people, maybe people who are against teaching people things should be removed.
But also the logic of the people complaining is Islam is Islamophobic. I mean, do you hear yourself? Do you hear the people talking to you? Anyway, so in here they say, meanwhile, Professor Greer said he had to flee the family home amid fears for his safety following the campaign against him. Oh, fantastic. We really are becoming France, aren't we? I'm sure we can get far more Samuel Patties in the coming years. What a wonderful world. He came across a stranger loitering outside our home shortly after the news of his controversy emerged. So, sorry, no, there was not controversy that emerged. The Bristol Islamic Society started throwing their toys at the pram because he dared to point to the Islamic world and say, that's different. Didn't even necessarily say that's bad. He just said, that's different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's pointing out objective characteristics of Muslim societies that if you went to the society and was just like, well, what do you do to unbelievers or people who speak ill of Islam? They'd be like, they'll tell you. They won't care. They won't be ashamed. Yeah.
I mean, the Taliban are not like pretending. You just look at their memes.
It's not just the Taliban, but lots of Islamic countries as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iran, Jordan. I mean, we could go on forever, couldn't we? Anyway, so he came across someone loitering outside his home as soon as the controversy emerged, as the Islamic Society decided to make the controversy, adding, they gave an implausible excuse and left. Was it just coincidence, or was it, how do you read that word? Reckonright? I don't know. He's a professor. He uses words I can't read. So we'll never know. My family and I were, of course, very rattled by this. I would be. Taking no chances, my wife and I fled our home to stay elsewhere for safety for several days. Although a formal investigation came down in favor of Professor Greer, he received an email from academic chiefs later this week, which said that the module on Islam, China, and the Far East was being dropped, so Muslim students would not feel that their religion was being singled out or in any way othered by the class material. The module is called Islam, China, and the Far East. And they're upset that the Muslims are being singled out in the module about Islam. Talking about Islam in Islamic terms is Islamophobic, and you're singling out Muslims by talking a module on Islam. I'm sorry, but there couldn't be a more transparent case of someone just trying to censor academic teaching in the UK. Mm-hmm. There is nothing here. Nada. They have nothing on their side whatsoever other than just don't say it. Just don't say that we do things that are Islamic. Like, well, it's a course on Islam, you dumbos. And yet his course still gets cancelled in Bristol. I mean, just down the road from here. Mm-hmm. Lovely Britain.
It's ridiculous. Also, the word you couldn't pronounce, I think it was reconnatoire, which means
sounds
a
French
recon, right?
Yeah. No, not for me. Anyway, of the 697 cases taken on by Prevent last year, 73% were those from the far-right extremism, and also 30% were Islamist. And this is something I believe you actually looked into previously, which is that Prevent were overwhelming dealing with jihadist terrorism.
Yes.
And then because of pissed off Islamic societies like this one, who have nothing but Islamism behind them by the looks of it, they decided that they were investigating more far-right terrorism, and they couldn't find any. So they started investigating pensioners.
Yeah, the head of the Cobra Intelligence Group, which is like the main anti-terror organisation in the UK that provides emergency meetings with the Prime Minister, he was just like, yeah, this is obviously just political. Obviously, the threat of the far right is not comparable to Islamic people. It's just political pressure and the fact that there's lots of old people. And then he actually relates it to old imams as well. It's just like, well, if they're old, maybe they're just imams trying to radicalise young people. And that's just like, yes.
But also the point there is, if it's not political, why are overwhelmingly the suspects for the far-right pensioners? Mm-hmm. Why is that not the case with any other terrorists?
Scary pensioners.
Yeah, they're not. Anyway, so the guy, Stephen Greer, he's actually written an article about this on conservativwomen.com, which I love. Sorry, it's conservativewomen.co.uk, but I just love it. He's like, yeah, I've got to go to conservative women to write about this, which, I mean, no diss on conservative women. I mean, great outlet, but, you know, I just find it funny. Anyway, so he writes, lies, distortion, intimidation, this toxic campaign to brand me Islamophobic. So he writes in here, a series of questions at the end of this, because he lays out what we've laid out. And the questions are not bad, and he hints at legal action. Why have there not been disciplined for victimization, intimidation, and harassment 7 months on, referring to the people who have been intimidating him for daring to say that Islam is Islamic? How are the express reasons for the removal of the Islam, China, and Far East topic from the syllabus consistent with the university's statutory obligation to defend academic freedom? Will the university support the law school's decision or the result of its own inquiry, which is that he did nothing wrong? In the quest for satisfactory answers, a solicitor has been appointed. And the reason I found out about this story was thanks to the Free Speech Union, who I'm signed up to, who sent me an email. They send emails every Friday or whatever with a bunch of stuff. And he seems to be in contact with them. And yeah, they're going to fight back on this, which is good to see.
Yeah, good.
Because
roll over and just take it. You should make them pay for their cancelling of him, really. Yeah.
And also, if they get their way, well, literally, like, what they're asking for is that you shouldn't be able to teach the Quranic interpretation of Islam. I mean, remember, that's how foundational we're getting to this, as Islam within universities, because it offends Muslims, because it makes them look bad. Because Islam looks bad when quoted, you can't teach it. That's the demand. That's what's being asked of you.
It's so absurd, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing about all of this is it really reminded me of a really joke story that came out of Turkey. I don't know if you remember this, The Economist. Turkey investigates those who object to Islamophobia. Sorry, those who object to homophobia. For Islamophobia. If you object to homophobia, you're an Islamophobe in Turkey. And if you object to Islam in Britain, you're also an Islamophobe. I mean, if you wanted more proof that the term Islamophobia is just a cudgel with which to beat morons, then this is it.
I mean, there aren't many religions where they've got their own term where you're like Christianophobic.
Yeah, it doesn't get used.
Catholophobic.
Exactly. I mean, this is why in law, if you wanted to do hate laws for some reason, then you could do anti-Muslim bigotry, as Majid Nawaz gives an example. They don't want to use that. They want to use this because it can be used for anything. It's literally just shutting down anyone who criticizes us. So in here, they say, Ali Abbas, the country's top religious official, proclaimed that Islam condemned homosexuality, quote, because it brought illness and generational decay. Erdogan, the president, and his supporters rushed to the cleric's defense with one of his flags saying that Mr. Abbas could not be faulted for voicing divine judgment. Another accused his critics of Islamophobia. An attack against the head of the Dinat is an attack against the state, Mr. Erdogan himself warned. Literally, if you have a problem with homophobia, you're an Islamophobe. And we have the same example in the UK now, which is if you have a problem with Islam, or even just quote Islam, you're also an Islamophobe, because it makes Islam look bad. I can't get over it.
Can't believe it's got to this point.
Yeah. But all the best to Mr. Greer and the Free Speech Union if they're working with him or in contact with him, which they seem to be. Yeah. Screw the University of Bristol. Don't send your kids there. If you are there, make a big fuss about this, because that's the right thing to do. And also, throughout the country, be aware that they're up to this. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to the full premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, we've got some really good stuff. Like podcasts, we can't really put up on YouTube or other public domains because we're dealing with sensitive subjects and we don't want to be misconstrued in what we're saying here. The most recent one I've done is the Progressing to Destruction podcast, which is talking about the actual impact of immigration on the United Kingdom. There are lots of progressive arguments on how the ethnic diversity of the restaurants that you're enjoying has nothing but positive results for the United Kingdom, and that's not true. And we can actually see some of the consequences of this. And so I go through that in detail. We also have our regular series, such as the Epochs of the Lotus Eaters, where we talk about history, myself and Bodade. With this particular one, I really enjoyed because it's talking about the Battle of Tunis and why leadership matters, because this was in the First Punic War, where Carthage is losing horrifically to the Romans, and they can't understand why, because there's nothing wrong with their navy, there's nothing wrong with their army. Turns out it was all about the leadership, and all it took was one Spartan general to come and turn the entire thing around, and that was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed doing that. And we also have the Contemplation series that Josh and Hugo do. This is really interesting, where they just take an interesting subject and go through it in meticulous detail. This particular episode is the science of conformity, and you may well have seen lots of people still wearing their masks in the UK and elsewhere, even though you don't have to. And this goes into why psychology shows that people happen to do this kind of thing. We also have lots of premium articles, again, dealing with subjects that often are not something that you can adequately have a conversation with a bad faith actor. This particular one is free speech and the trope of gay parenthood, which on the, immediately you think, okay, this is going to be politically incorrect in some way, but it's not really. It's actually a very delicate article expressing concern that this is yet another subject where the results aren't in, we don't know what the consequences of this are, and yet we're still not allowed to question the premise. And it's because of the current political environment that we're in. Also, there are lots of other just very interesting and informative articles, such as one by Hugo about how overpopulation isn't real. It's not a real thing. And yet we're constantly told that it is. But the Earth is enormous. And it turns out it can hold billions more humans than we actually have. So, interesting that. And we also have loads of very interesting interviews with people who you may not have heard of, such as Hatton Tash, the lady who was attacked, a Christian lady who was attacked at Speaker's Corner for questioning Islamism. She was stabbed in the head. In very interesting interview with her and various others. You should come to our live events. There's one on the 24th of September and one on the 25th of September. The 25th of September one's probably almost sold out, but there might be a few tickets left. But there are still some for the Friday, where we have special guest Andrew Lawrence, the world's most cancelled comedian, probably, at this point. And
certainly in Britain.
Goodest boy who didn't do nothing as well. Very much. I'm a big fan of Andrew Lawrence anyway, so I'm really glad that he's going to be our special guest on that day. But we're also going to be having other things. Count Dankula is going to be there, Mark Meakin, which I pronounced correctly this time, and he'll be doing a comedy set. And you're doing a special secret presentation, aren't you?
My secret speech. I don't want to leak it yet because the surprise is part of the speech. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be about immigration policy. So.
Right, okay. And I'll be doing a secret presentation as well, which again I don't want to spoil because it ruins the fun of it, doesn't it? But yeah, so these will be somewhere in South London, secret venue, because you know how leftist activists are. Insufferable. But we will email you the details of where the venue is after you've signed up, obviously, because that way we don't have to make it public, and a bunch of people who don't want to come and just want to stop us from having a live event can't come and shut it down. So you can go to lotus.com and find that, and we will see you there.